Hi and welcome everyone. This is Lavender Sky Panther. Today is Monday, January 10th, 2022, and the topic for the day is called Tree, Sky, Sun. It's a collection of images and sky observations happening between is what I usually say, and then I give you the time frame. Well, that's not happening today. This is a standalone show of several layerings of remarkable topics that I'm really excited actually to bring about, because normally, if you've watched any of my previous shows, you see I cover extensively just everything going on, all the anomalies and high strangeness and oddities happening in our skies, especially, wherever I am, generally in the area of Miami, Florida. Well, this time around, I have been guided to do something completely different. So I kind of had a soft lead into this topic on my previous show called 2022 Up. It's about 2 shows back. So I highly recommend you take a look there, just even at the intro, to see what I'm going to be getting at here and why I'm leading into this show from there. But anyway, on this cover, the image here is a mini stave of the Celtic Ogham alphabet, tree alphabet, and it's number 5, letter number 5, and it's the ash tree or neon. And the symbolisms here are the connection to the divine, the world, tree, and peace. Now, I'm going to move in and just cover a little bit more on that alphabet, and then we're going to get into some really fascinating topics. If you can stick around, yes, cringeworthy pun intended. So the Celtic Ogham symbols, there are 20 in the tree alphabet. I have them listed here. I'll read them off in a moment in case any of you are just listening to this as audio and running around and doing things. But I really love this because if you look at these symbols, this is just half of the alphabet, just put down there randomly, but I love this quote up here. It says, Oghams were written vertically, then carved into stone and read, bottom to top, as you would climb a tree. They were later written in manuscripts and read left to right. And that's just an excerpt from Ogham Alphabet by the peculiarbrunette.com. I haven't looked at anything else on her site. I just like that quote, but have a look around if you wish. Now, anyway, what is interesting about that is, the tree alphabet also is said to, represent kind of branches of a tree and follow that kind of symbolism. Well, I just love the idea of reading it from bottom to top for some reason. So I invite you to look at this as a whole fascinating topic in and of itself. I'm only touching on it this way, too, because the next topic we're going to really get into, a bit more anyway, is the whole topic about BigFoot, Sasquatch, Yowie, HairyMan, BigMan, ForestGiant, Stickman, SkunkApe, Yeti. They go by so many different names, countless names, especially if you look into some of the Native American names, especially in the Pacific Northwest of the United States, and tons of different names over in Australia and everywhere in the world, I would imagine. So, we're going to jump into that topic next. Yes, they exist. 100% factual, yes, they exist. And they do here on Earth and in other dimensions as well, as you're going to see in the show coming up. So, anyway, back to our little Ogham alphabet here. I'm talking about these two because of the obvious interconnection and close connection of Sasquatch or Bigfoot. Again, I'm going to just throw out all different names throughout the show. Just interchange whatever one you like to use. But there's such a close interconnection between these beings and the trees themselves. So to the extent that not only do the Yowies or Bigfoot, they hug the tree to hide, but also they can even camouflage themselves into a tree itself, like tree stumps. There's accounts of that happening. Also, they leave stick symbols on the ground. So they graphically arrange sticks to create certain symbols, which people are still trying to decode. A lot of researchers right now, and just people who are fascinated by this topic, such as myself. And also, they make stick structures. So it's said and documented all over the place that they make these teepee-like structures. They bend the boughs that almost look like they're making portals or doorways or archways. So there's a lot to this topic. But anyway, back to our alphabet, and then we'll jump back into the whole Sasquatch world in a second. But I have it listed here, 1 through 20. I'm just going to kind of rattle it off. So the first word is kind of the English translation. The second one goes more into old ancient Celtic, but I'm going to just read off the second one names as best I can in that language. I'm sure there are more appropriate pronunciations, but I'm just going to go by feel on it for right now. because there's like a lot to research just in the pronunciation, and I'd rather put the focus elsewhere on the show. But please go fact check me, go take a look, and find out the real pronunciations, perhaps by someone who is Irish or has deeper roots to all of that world than I do. So here we go. So the first tree in the alphabet is birch. So I'll just say Baith. Then we have rowan, Luis, alder, fern, willow, sal, ash, neon, hawthorn, huath, oak, dua, holly, tinnin, hazel, cole, apple, keat, bramble, muin, ivy, gourd, reed, broom, or gelder rose, negatal, blackthorn, strife, elder, reese, pine, alim, gorse, own, heather, ur, aspen, eda, yew, ido. Okay? So I hope I did not totally not do that justice. Anybody who does know the true pronunciations, I hope you could bear with me there. Anyway, we've got 1 through 20 now. Within this, I did not include this on this slide, but this is what I encourage you to do. Make your own investigations and research on this, because it tends to be more fun when you do it and you come across a whole bunch of interesting sites along the way. So do take a look around on the internet, whether it's YouTube or not, and get into the meanings behind each of these. So some of these trees represent new beginnings. I read the first one on the cover slide of what the ash represented, but some go into harvest or renewal, protection, love, healing. There's so many, strength, of course, with the oak or dur. And anyway, that in and of itself is a fun topic that can keep you busy for days, weeks, months, years. So let's move on now into the really exciting core of this show, which is going back to the whole Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Yowie, HairyMan, BigMan, ForestGiant, Stickman, SkunkApe, Yeti. Again, so many names for this fascinating being or beings. Anyhow, I highly recommend these channels. A channel and a radio station. We have Australian Yowie Research, and you can search that on YouTube, or Yowiehunters Witness Reports, and that's with Dean and team. So in this channel, the Yowiehunters Witness Reports, especially look at these two. All of these are fascinating shows, but especially this one called AYR Yowie Footage Shot in the Gold Coast Hinterland, 4th of April, and the title goes on. And then watch that first, and then see Yowie Footage Revisited, a closer look at the AYR footage that we just saw down here. To me, this is all you need to look at if you are, still questioning, are Yowies or Bigfoot real? And Yowie, if I didn't mention it before, Yowie is the name used in Australia, typically for Bigfoot, Sasquatch. So if you're not if you're toying with, oh my gosh, I don't know if I really believe in this stuff, is Bigfoot real? Well, this hands down shows you, yes, Bigfoot's real. That on top of the millions, probably by now, of accounts that people are coming forward with, whether you're just, driving through one of these countrysides anywhere in Australia or in the United States, these sightings are documented, and witnesses have come forward with reports, very, 100% legit and credible reports all around the world now, and in North America, like everywhere in North America. People see them in Germany, even in the UK. These beings are everywhere. So I invite you to look here, though, especially at these two shows, because they show thermal imagery of two Yowies moving around. There's just no words. You hear me, I'm like tripped up. So beyond, I don't like the term mind-blowing, but we get what that means. I like to say mind-expanding. But this is like jaw-dropping, I can't even talk kind of footage that you need to go see in this video. And in the revisit, they kind of break stuff down a little bit more after they've had time to let this gel and kind of put together what was happening, what they found, and what they experienced. They go deep into the bush in Australia and have an encounter, trying to find these beings. So I want to step back. So when it says, so I'm sorry, I'm going to look back. When it says Yowiehunters Witness Reports, it doesn't mean they're hunting like to shoot and kill or harm these beings. It just means they're hunting like an Easter egg hunt, just trying to find them, that type of thing. That's all. They have high respect for these beings. But anyway, and documenting them and want to make sure they can know more, so they can also help people heal and understand what they've encountered. Because of course, anybody who's had a direct, especially face-to-face encounter with one of these beings, everybody reports they're never the same again. Some in good ways, some in not so good ways. And just the sheer force and power of the calls, the screams, the cries, the singing of these beings through the forest. People, report that they just reverberate through their whole body. They do have powers to kind of freeze people. And also there's some kind of time warp phenomenon, missing time phenomenon that happens around some of these. They can shapeshift into orbs, into other animals, even into human-like forms. So there's so many mystifying accounts happening. Now, I'm mentioning these channels because also on the Yowiehunters Witness Reports, or the Australian Yowie Research team, all of the accounts that they put in here are eyewitness accounts. Again, typically happening around Australia. And you can tell all of these are credible. You hear it in the people's voices. These are people, whoever kind of aligns with this channel, and also I'm going to get over here to the community radio show in Australia, Yowie Central with Sarah. All of these are just people of complete extraordinary kindness, integrity, and that attracts other like types of people. And you can hear it in the guests and in the eyewitness accounts happening and coming through. So anyway, I have had my own encounter I mentioned on a previous show. I do talk about it on Yowie Central if you want to look for that. Now, I'll touch on Yowie Central a bit now. So anyway, before I do, the AYR and the Yowiehunters Witness Reports team, there's actually a bigger team, and they all have their little specialties, whether they're experts on finding things on the trail, or doing the graphics, or the camera work. But again, amazing team, really great folks. And now we get into Sarah at this community radio show. She's affiliated, as kind of a colleague to this team over here, and she too, equally extraordinary in kindness, integrity, and so on. And if you listen to any of these shows, you'll know it, you'll feel it more than knowing it, you'll just feel it. So I just love these channels and these people and what they're doing, how they're going about doing it, and again, their integrity and how they deliver it and speak with their guests and their experiencers, let's just say. So they've got true heart, and that's really where we're all headed back to right now, that we've shifted from the age of Pisces going into Aquarius, that we've got to get back to who we really are, be authentic with that, and express our truths. Too much has been going on in the past where we've been living in a veil of deception, and people are kind of afraid to say who they really are, and that hasn't served humanity well. If people would really speak their truth and how they feel and what they're about, even if it sounds like, ooh, that sounds like out of my comfort zone to some, but then we would get to a more authentic and loving world, and that's where we're headed right now. And how do I know this? Because more and more people are coming forward with the accounts that they have had with these beings. And it's a trend, it's a rising trend, like rapidly, exponentially increasing trend, I would say. Because you can look at other channels, there's one I mentioned before too. Now, I do not support physical hunting of game and animals whatsoever. But on this other channel, How to Hunt, for the facts by howtohunt.com, Steve over there is reading accounts from hunters and outdoorsmen and women who spend a ton of time out in the forests and the woods. In this case, mostly he's based up in Canada, but his reports are coming in from around the world as well. And I personally didn't really even think about my encounter until last year. It was like a light switch came on, just something, it was bringing it to the fore of my brain and just saying, hey, you got to look at this again. And I really did completely forgot about it. I was a young teen. But something's just pulling that, is driving that forward. So a lot of us are having a memory, a recall about some of these extraordinary experiences that normally people would say, if all the decades passed, oh, that's crazy talk, there's no such thing. Well, there's been an active campaign to bury all of these truths, and now all of us, it's like a light switch is activating us, is lighting a little fire under our asses. I'm sorry, pardon my French. But now it's bringing it up and saying, hey, forget, you know what the truth is. Forget all of what other people have said to just knock down this whole topic. It's time to plow through that, because we all know the truth, and the truth will rise, the truth will come to light. And in all of this, the truth will set us free. A lot of us have been holding some of these stories because there's no one to talk to about them. And you know what? Some are downright scary and terrifying, that some of the encounters that people are having. But some are also just wondrous and mystical, and so worth sharing in either case. So anyway, that's where we are at, and that's why I'm recommending these channels and the station. Do have a listen. Also, go look on YouTube, especially for some of the sound recordings. I just find fascinating as well. You listen to some of these howls and screams and calls and singings of these beings in the forest, undeniably so, because there's no other animal or creature known on the planet that has the magnitude and force of the sound coming out of the lungs. And so if you look around, I think especially there's some really great recordings happening in some of the parks and reserves in Washington State. But of course, they're also captured all over the world. I just heard one yesterday on that How to Hunt channel of somebody in Texas, Northeast Texas, and it was credible. You listen to that, and then you go tell me what the heck that is if it's not one of these amazing creatures. Again, can sound terrifying, but you got to admit it's also spellbinding, fascinating at the same time. Now, if you've experienced directly, you'll probably have a totally different statement on that, and I get it. If I heard that right around where I was living, some of the force of these calls and sounds, I'm sure I would pack up and move. But, other people stay. And, for all of the accounts of these beings, yes, there's some back in earlier days with trappers and people moving across the West where, they reported some of these beings were cannibalistic and, killed people. I'm sure, yes, that goes on. There are good ones, as they say, and bad ones, and just like they're people. And we don't fully understand the concept of what these beings truly are. So the fact that they can shapeshift and become orbs and change into, say, like a big black cat or an iguana or a human even, there's a lot to this we don't understand. Also, there are shapeshifters of evil demonic origin who can shapeshift to look like a Yowie. On one of Sarah's shows at Yowie Central, there was an account of, I think it was a dogman or a Yowie, who the person who had the encounter said they saw the eyes and they looked reptilian. And then that brings us into things like the Native American accounts, where they say that they thought that the BigFoot was like an ancient being, like the ancient one, they said, that had a reptilian form and could shapeshift into a Yowie. Then that leads us further into more of the paranormal and the UFO, the ghosts, the portals, other dimension things, supernatural phenomenon, where these things sometimes aren't even visible. You just hear their footsteps, or they just vanish, but they're there. And also the link with UFOs. There just seems to be, and I had this personally, there's like a beam of light, and then there's also a Yowie, and some people even just see UFO, like a craft activity somewhere, and also have a Yowie present. So the question is, are these beings being enslaved by some other UFO, parties, let's just say, and they're like dropped off to do their thing and picked up? And do things maybe they don't want to do, or that is their race or their species, and they are interstellar and they fly around on UFOs and come here occasionally. Then we know there are the very earth-based Yowies or Sasquatch who are definitely tied to the land and very more 3D in character. So I don't think it's an either or. I think we're dealing with a whole myriad of all of this stuff as being possible, and there aren't just one type of species. Some people say they're like over 30 kinds of species. When we're looking at SkunkApe in Florida, which has different characteristics than the Yeti, of course, up in the snowy mountains. And then you hear of, some are gray and some are gray with patchy gray and brown mottled mixed in the hair. Some are black, some are white, some are like blonde colored, some are reddish colored, have reddish colored hair. So we are dealing with so many varieties, like people, and it's actually beautiful. So, yeah, would it be terrifying to encounter one in the forest? Sure, more than likely. Some people, though, have had very positive encounters. And, I think with the negative ones, some people are carrying guns. I have a theory that these beings are able to detect even our ancient lineage, even our galactic ties. So if we happen to have, I do believe all of us here are star seeds. We have some type of connection to some other star system origin. So whether you've got roots that are heavier with the reptilian races, or Andromedan or Pleiades or Lyran, I think these beings can detect that, because there's a whole rash of stories where the Sasquatch kill dogs, like they cannot stand them. And they don't eat them, they just hurt them or kill them. And my first theory was, well, the frequency, maybe these dogs bark or yap at such a frequency that drives these beings nuts. If you think about their sheer size, which is reported to be anywhere from like 6 feet on the short end. I mean, there's some shorter ones, maybe around 4 feet, but 6 feet, but typically 7, 8, 9. Some people have seen 12 or 15-foot beings. If you think of their sheer size, and we know like dogs and lions of our scale and size already have phenomenal range of sensitivity, or very sensitive. You can only imagine what a Yowie sensitivity would be. So my theory was that these dogs are driving these beings nuts with their barking. And maybe they just do anything they can to stop it, which is like harming it or killing it. Much like I've heard, I don't know if this is true, haven't been able to verify it myself, nor do I really want to, but I heard that mountain lions, which also go by the name of puma, catamount, ghost cat, panther, they they supposedly like go nuts and like run up a tree if they hear a poodle barking. So again, I don't know if that's true. So anyway, that led me to come up with that kind of theory. Maybe the frequency is just driving them crazy. They can clearly hear for God knows how many miles, probably, these Yowies or these Sasquatch beings. I could see where that would just drive them nuts. However, I also have another theory tying back again to our potential galactic roots. Maybe, the dog is a representation, if you carry it down further, from a dog man. We are a representation of some, giant human-looking beings, galactic star-wise, starseed-wise. Then you've got cats, coming down, a representation of the Lyrans, so the 3D Earth representation of these other beings. Of course, we have snakes, crocodiles, alligators, lizards. All of these are the reptiles, right? So little mini versions of the reptilians. Now, supposedly the Draco beings, and I know I'm going all over the place, but I just have to. Draco beings are kind of like the masterminds who won't step foot on Earth, supposedly, right? And have their reptilians like as little minions doing their dirty work. But there is some type of Draco representation if you look at the Komodo dragon, right? So it's all very fascinating if you want to like jump into that whole world of what could be going on with our ancient lineage and starseed origins. But yeah, I do believe so, getting back to the dogs and what's happening. So I believe that the dog, is kind of a reminder of this dogman being, or maybe there's some way that these galactic kind of dogmen have a stronger link with our modern day dogs here. Whatever the case, it could be a really awful reminder to them when they see a dog, and maybe they kill it because perhaps this dogman race of galactic beings wiped out their whole race or really injured their people, and so they can't stand the sight of them. I don't know. Just a new theory I'm toying with. See what you think about that. Now, also, of course, we see Yowie or Sasquatch on in Star Wars in the movies in 1977. I think even if you haven't had a personal encounter, just seeing that movie, a lot of us, I think instinctively, a lot of us who were really young watching that movie too, just instinctively accepted it. Like, okay, somewhere deep down, I think we kind of have a knowing these beings exist. Like, who didn't love Chewie? I thought he was great, and that's a Bigfoot, right? So anyway, and what happens in that movie, that whole arc and storyline, is that the Sasquatch, what was their name? Dang it, their race. Well, the Wookiees, but I forget where they come from. Anyway, people out there, you're going to know right away. But anyway, they were enslaved, right? They were doing the slave and hard work, supposedly on the Death Star for the Empire, which, by the way, the Empire is the representation of the reptilians, and with their overlords as the Dracos. So very fascinating. They just kind of turn them into humans to make the story palatable to all of us, more palatable. Anyway, all that to say, we've got a very interesting story here. We've got stuff playing out real time in the 3D Earth. We have supernatural phenomena that none of us can truly explain. We're just kind of getting inklings of it with portals and other things of how these beings can shapeshift into orbs and all these fascinating things. And what is the relationship of dogmen and Yowies? And then we get into the paranormal with ghosts and demons and talking about all the spiritual realms. All of this comes up on Yowie Central, by the way, on Sarah's show. So she covers not only the witness accounts happening in Australia of Bigfoot, and other of their cryptoids, but also, river creatures, people seeing the dogmen and other beings, And, you know, you've got the strong originals, the original peoples to Australia. Some of the descendants come on the show too and are talking about the stories that they have heard, you know, from their ancestors. And on that point, I also want to recommend you go take a look at a website called that's ya-native.com, and look up Sasquatch Bigfoot there, because you see a whole another array, you know, whole other arena of interesting accounts from Native Americans about the topic. So I know I've kind of gone all over the place. These are my picks and my faves for finding direct evidence. Also on the AYR Yowie footage on these two, do have a look. Not only are you going to see live moving Bigfoot, two of them, on thermal image cameras, but also they have a colleague, I think in Mississippi, who got an amazing photo capture of a Yowie hugging a tree. And it's an undeniable, irrefutable evidence. So that's hands down. If you're looking for proof, you got it. And to me, the proof is really in all of the accounts. Because once you've seen one or had an experience with one, or one that you know that was there, you just know. And no one can take that away from you. And then you don't even need the evidence. But it's still fun. Don't get me wrong. It is so exciting to see this evidence they have here. And so fun to hear, fascinating to hear all of these accounts of people growing up all their lives and kind of putting the pieces together now of, wow, this happened way back when, and oh my God, that was a Yowie. And so anyway, we're entering into an exciting age of discovery. We're in the Great Awakening. We're kicking the Great Deception to the curb by the second, thank God. And I'm going to move on now. So anyway, now, on top of that, what I was just talking about, this is something that had come up in the last year for me. So last March, I had some telepathic communication, or I like to call it a telepathic conversation with a Yeti. And I only had this because, like I said, in the last year, oh, hold on one second. Okay, I'm back. In the last year, something's been really pulling this, you know, this recall, this remembrance of an encounter I had with a Sasquatch back in the early 1980s in North Carolina, in the forest, in the mountains, in the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains. Anyway, all that to say, it led me to talking to some spiritual guides and finding out that I can connect on a different dimension and a different space and time, perhaps, although it's all kind of one continuum of time if you don't look at it linear. Everything's happening like real time in all dimensions. I do believe we have like 11 or 12 parallel dimensions and versions of ourselves, which can also sometimes be our higher self when we have something like urging us on, or a little voice in our head saying, don't do this or do this to kind of protect you. That could be an angelic being, that could be God's source, that could be your spirit team up there somewhere, wherever it is. But it also could be a version of ourselves, like in a different point in time, again, not linear, but just, you know, kind of harking back and saying, hey, watch out for this. So it's, again, that's a whole nother topic too. That is touched on again, on that Yowie Central radio show. But I want to tell you that through this whole experience, though, that this very strong recall was coming to the fore, I learned how to telepathically communicate with a being kind of dedicated to me, or me to her. So I'm titling this little telepathic communication that just came into me, or conversation, sorry, telepathic conversation is more appropriate, came to me yesterday, in fact, at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So I hadn't had any communication like this before until, it was around March 2021. So I do want to share this. I think it's important. It's going to be a little choppy in the description because how it came through was mostly just kind of with words and some visuals and some impressions. And so I'm best, trying to combine what I was hearing with what I was seeing at the same time. And it's going to be a little rough and choppy, but I like it that way. And so just try to, stay with me on the rhythm and the cadence of this, and more importantly, the feeling behind it, which is complete love. So the Yeti I was communicating with has a name, but I don't want to share that. But the kind of name that she says, we can call her or go by is just Sun. And I'll tell you why at the very end. But I just want to read the words that came in from her. Beautiful being, gorgeous being, just full of love. And in fact, the first message I got from her back in March of 2021 was just to remind everybody that there's just tremendous love coming from the heart space, and how everyone just needs to live from that. And that was just the first message I got, like a little baby step message of even trying to connect with a being like this. And when this is done, you just make sure that when you close your eyes and kind of think of the being, just make sure everything is wrapped in God's protection and in tremendous love and light, and that it's all for the highest good, and only a positive, loving, kind being who has your best loving interest at heart. And that was this connection. So here is the message. It was a surprise to me to get it, and I know I'm so happy to share it with you right now. Okay, so imagine this coming from Sun, our Yeti friend. Open your eyes wide and hear the call of our kind. You are more powerful than you know. It's time to remember that now. We are here for you to see. There are good ones, there are bad ones. Our kind, all kind. Key into your intuition. You need to practice that. The forest, protect it, love it, and everything in it. It is you. Sing more. Stand there in forest or nature. Find a forest. Close your eyes. Feel the wind. Feel everything. Feel. Smile. Love. Dance. Celebrate. Live. Breathe. Touch water. Touch trees. Touch rocks. Touch hearts. Touch minds. There is so much in touch. Sorry, I had to clear my voice. This is why some are touched through tents by our kind. So much information comes through touch. It's been forgotten, must be remembered and practiced. The ground loves you. Love it too. Thank humans for seeing the light. So much love. It's okay. The earth, no. The earth loves so much. Roots, our knowing, linked, hand in hand with you. We sing with you now. No worry. We love. We, you. Sit down together at, around by, the campfire. See the world through our eyes. We are here for you. We share with you. Fire, air, water, life, forest, green. Be kind, understand. Move where your heart takes you. Giggle, be glad. Laugh, it good. Death is part of life, but life never dies. It cannot, it glows, it flies, it is you. Thank you, love you, bye. Your friend, glow, smile, big tree, tall tree, look up, high, feel, big sky, free. So much coming for you, meaning everyone. Stars. Okay, sorry about the break in it, but I had to catch my voice again. So that was my beautiful, gorgeous message from this exquisite being. And at the very end, when she was talking about, excuse me, looking up and high up into the trees and beyond into the big sky and feeling free, she was laughing a little bit like a mom would, like talking with children. She's just saying so much knowledge is coming for you, meaning all of us. And the warm-hearted laughter she had, it was like a mother knowing that a very happy surprise is coming for her child, but she doesn't want to say as to ruin the big surprise. And she is so looking forward to seeing and feeling the child's pure bliss when the surprise happens. And to me, at the end, stars, wow, it's just so telling of where we're all going, what we're reconnecting with, and the infinite possibilities about what's to come and what we're coming into. It's a very exciting time. So at the very end of this little telepathic communication, I did kind of just mentally ask, okay, so will we talk again, son? And she said, she smiled and said another day. And just as a little aside, a PS, son, when she was talking to me, she gave me a personal message, but I will share it because I think someone out there listening to this might want to hear it, need it right now. So her message just for me personally was balance, heal, star, find your star, focus. And then she repeated that in an image, balance, heal, star, focus, find your star. And as she was saying find your star, that just seemed so significant. I did see a star kind of come to the middle of my, again, my eyes are closed when I'm doing this, like in the middle of my view, in my mind's eye, just this gorgeous star, and almost like on the cover of my last show, the way it looked like a star, even though that one was artificial, this was a real, more beautiful star. So I'm not exactly sure what that means yet, but I like where that's going. So anyway, when I was talking with her mentally, telepathically, I asked her, so what role are you wherever you are in your group? Are you like a priestess, an elder, a shaman, what? And she just said sun, a sun like light, but really there's no name to identify her or a role. So that's that. I felt compelled to share that with you. I hope you enjoyed it and that it means something to you. It sure does to me. All right, now this is the backside of the mini stave on the original cover to this whole show. Again, it's the 5th letter in the Ogham alphabet. It's the tree ash or neem. And so I do want to say again, sorry for the cringeworthy, cringe here all over the place, but thanks for sticking around here a while. I send all of you so much love and wishes for tremendous peace and all good things for right now and coming up in the 2022 ahead. So take care, everybody. Lavender Sky Panther. Bye.